roles. We're going to start off with a short conversation between ourselves, and then we'll move on to some audience questions. So, most importantly, do you regret not staying up last night?
No. I woke up and my son had been up at 5 watching it on catch up, and he was so excited.
Right.
Oh, right.
Okay. Let's project, unless we have microphones, which would help immensely. Right. Hello. Is that better? It's a bit better. Right, there we go.
This is better as well.
Good.
Okay.
We found our voice. So your son stayed up all night. Did you watch it on catch up?
No. He watched it. He watched it on catch up. So he woke up at 5. By the time I was up, he was just over the moon. But I wasn't going to stay up till 1 a.m. because if I did, then I wouldn't be here. I'd probably be asleep right now, and I knew I wouldn't want all of you to be disappointed. But it's a fantastic result, actually. I was a bit worried that Mexico, on their home turf, would be quite tough to beat. So now I think we can go all the way.
And if we do go all the way, would you back a bank holiday?
Probably not still. So yes, this sadly, we all know what would happen with a bank holiday. The private sector would still be working, and the public sector would take the day off, and you'd all have to pay for it. So this Conservative Party is very much about common sense. Party hard, but work hard too. That is my motto. Yeah. And
like England, you and your team do seem pretty chuffed at the moment. Without, to put it bluntly, I mean, why? The polls haven't really shifted, but the mood in Westminster among Tories seems to be skyrocketing.
Well, we are in a good place because politics is more than just polls. We are more united than ever before. People are beginning to understand what this Conservative Party under my leadership is about. We are a common sense party with an actual plan to get Britain working, and we can unite the country. This is a unique position to have. There's no other party that can say all of those three things. And it was very tough after the last election, our worst defeat ever. And people thought that we would not come back. We had many people saying the Conservatives will be out for 20 years. And actually, we can see that there is a path. I'm not saying that everything's perfect and job done, far from it. There's still a long road ahead. But we're winning by-elections like Aberdeen South. The last time we were in opposition, it took us 11 years to win a by-election. We've now won a by-election in 2 years, the first time we have taken a seat off any party in Scotland since 1967, which is absolutely fantastic. And this is why you're seeing Conservative MPs being perky, because this is just the beginning. There's quite a lot more good stuff to come. This is not it.
Yes, and I did wonder if the venue, Scotland House, was a nod to your recent victory up there. But of course, Rishi did manage to win in Uxbridge, didn't he? On a single issue by-election campaign, then it was ULEZ. So should we really read too much into that victory?
So we shouldn't read too much into anything at all. We shouldn't read too much into polls, shouldn't read too much into local elections, shouldn't read too much into by-elections. But they are indications, and you can actually see bits of a story coming out there. And what you saw in Aberdeen was a city saying no thanks to the net zero madness and the woke of Labour and the woke nonsense of the SNP. They could see that we were the only common sense option that was available. And the difference between now and the Uxbridge by-election is that now there is a party, certainly that claims to be on the right of us. I always dispute that. I don't think that Reform are to the right of us. It claims to be on the right of us. And that was quite different from the Uxbridge by-election. So this is a completely new landscape. Multi-party politics is its own thing. You can't compare to what came before. You have to look at the age and the era we're in now. And that is the strategy that I'm working on for today, not for 2015 or 2019 or 1997. There's something different that's happening in our country right now, and we've got a plan for it.
I suppose the difference is that we're in yet another period of enormous chaos. How are you bracing for Andy? Are you thinking of new strategies, or are you going to have to just sit back and wait for the chaos that's enveloped this government to come to this next one?
I don't know if you guys have been watching him, but it looks like he wants the summer off. When I look at Andy Burnham, he doesn't strike me as somebody who is raring to go as Prime Minister. He doesn't want to take any questions. He's not going to be able to dodge questions at PMQs. I will make sure of that. He hasn't quite worked out what he wants to do, which is interesting. It's similar to Keir Starmer, who thought fighting an election was the same as being ready for government. I think that that's what Andy Burnham is thinking, that he's already won the Labour leadership contest, and he'll just give lots more work to loads more mayors, and he can sit back and watch the football. And he is going to find that he is walking into a big mess. Keir Starmer has left him with many problems. Tomorrow, you'll see we're going to be having a vote on the early release of all of these rapists and pedos that Labour is letting loose, disgrace. He's going to find that there is no defence investment plan, and the military and the defence industry are going to ask him for answers. We've got answers. We have got a plan. We've been thinking about it. He's just getting started, but he will have a honeymoon, I'm sure. Pretty much every new leader does. And I'm somebody who has got a lot of stamina. We've got a strategy. We'll stay the course. And I think we'll be able to deal with Andy Burnham just as we did with Keir Starmer.
I mean, most leaders do enjoy a honeymoon period. Of course, there was one recent leader who was elected from a relatively extreme wing of the party, became Prime Minister with not as much public scrutiny as we might expect, and the economy didn't really thank us for that choice. Do you think that, can you envisage a world in which we have a sort of left-wing version of Liz Truss on the horizon? Should we be bracing for an economic meltdown?
So one of the things that went wrong 4 years ago that summer was the books not being balanced and not wanting to take difficult decisions. It's always the thing that undoes politicians, wanting to be popular rather than taking the tough decisions that let you be popular later, trying to be popular now. I stood in that leadership contest in 2022. And I remember the questions were, what are you going to do about energy bills? What are you going to do about energy bills? Look at these energy bills. Russia's invaded Ukraine, energy bills, energy bills, energy bills. And then Liz came out and said, hey, look at what I'm doing on energy bills. 150 billion pounds, but the books weren't balanced, and that's why it fell apart. Andy Burnham has a choice. He can take some tough decisions, cutting welfare to balance the books, or he can try and borrow more and hope that that fixes it. If he does, he will have a real shock. I think the markets will react. We will end up with summers and winters of discontent. And I think he knows he's got a problem, which is why he's not talking about an early election, because he knows he is running into some tough storms ahead, but he doesn't have a plan.
Well, let's talk about an early election, because I was in the audience for your speech last Monday, where I believe you said that there should be a snap election if Andy Burnham can't conjure up the remaining deficit for what's needed for the defence investment plan. Now, as far as I can see, we're not going to get any extra cash on defence from Andy Burnham. That's not part of his plan or his priority. So isn't your actual position that there should be a snap election fairly soon?
Well, he's not Prime Minister yet, and he hasn't really said very much yet. I mean, he went on Reddit and gave these very, very random answers, which showed me that this is not somebody who's thought deeply about these things. If he cannot fund defence, when the last Labour Defence Secretary has said that we're not keeping the country safe, that the troops are unprotected, then we should have a general election. But the thing is, I'm not a hypocrite. I don't just run around saying, oh, let's have an election, let's have an election. When we changed Prime Ministers, I didn't say let's have an election. So why would I suddenly change my tune because it's Labour that's in government? What you will find with me is that I'm very consistent. I don't change things just because somebody else is in power. You don't hear me asking people to stand down for by-elections. You don't hear me asking people to have snap elections. But I would love a snap election, because I've got a plan. I am ready. And the more time that goes on, the more ready I will be. But we put out an alternative King's Speech.
Just to clarify, I suppose, of course he isn't Prime Minister yet, and you've got to give him a chance. But when are you saying that money should materialise? You say if it's not there in the next budget, then we should have a snap election.
Well, a budget would be the obvious place to fund the Defence Investment Plan. This Defence Investment Plan should actually have been in the last budget, so it's very, very late. And what worries me is that there are so many national security issues that a lot of people don't know about. Some of you might have heard about the Russian planes that were dropping those sonar devices. There is a stealth operation going on to destabilize the West, multiple countries. We do need to think seriously about national security. Now, he might decide that he wants to borrow. He might decide that he wants to tax. He made that comment about there being movement on tax. So we do need to give him some time to make up his mind. What annoys me is that he really should be there now. Why is he waiting until the 20th of July? It is so that he doesn't have to face me at PMQs, doesn't have to face MPs asking him difficult questions. That's what he is avoiding. He would much rather be answering softball questions on Reddit than serious questions in the House of Commons. But I'm very happy if Andy Burnham wants to spend his honeymoon period with the electorate watching football and having a nice summer, he will find that the autumn is going to be much more difficult.
You and I both know how difficult it is to pin Andy Burnham down for questions, I can say that. If we talk about snap elections, there was a story today, one snap election you are reportedly preparing to fight for is a potential by-election in Clacton. I mean, first of all, is that true? Are you putting resources into that possibility? And you know, is Nigel Farage finished?
Well, I would be surprised if this was the end of Nigel Farage. He's been hanging around politics for a very long time. He's had his ups and downs, and it's very clear that he's going through quite a difficult time. But I just see this as an indicator of what, if he ever got in, what a Nigel Farage government would look like. It would just be this over and over again. Stuff not being done properly, things not being reported, endless scandals, and I just think that it would be chaos. So we have to be prepared for any eventuality. What I'm trying to show is that while Andy Burnham is having his summer holiday, Keir Starmer's walking off into the sunset, Nigel Farage is dealing with the latest scandal of how many houses he has and why he really got £5 million. I'm coming up with an entire plan for government. Here's what we're doing on energy security. It's not just drilling our oil and gas in the North Sea. What we're doing with net zero, what we're doing with nuclear. Here's what we're doing on welfare. This is how we're going to fund defense. Here's our economic revolution, our 5-point plan. Not just lowering energy costs. This is the red tape we're going to cut. Here are the taxes we're going to lower. There's only one person who's actually turning up for work right now, and that's me.
Did you imagine when you got the job, when was it November 2024, that by this point in our electoral cycle, given the woes that the Conservatives had, they have become completely addicted to regicide, that you would be the most stable of all the party leaders?
Well, I didn't think that the other party leaders would be so unstable, but I stood for that leadership election because I just thought that the party might disappear if we didn't get the right person. And because I had looked at so many of our previous leaders and I had a good understanding of what I think that they got wrong. Too much policy just coming from on high, this is what we're doing, which put a lot of people's backs up. When we had something very difficult, like leaving the ECHR, I didn't just announce it and say, you know, if you want to be in my shadow cabinet, you need to leave the ECHR. There was a persuasion exercise. I am somebody whose career started off in the private sector. You have to know how to build a team. You can't just hope that your own sparkling personality, however magnetic, is enough. And that's what I've been working on. You also need to understand how everything connects. I'm an engineer as well. Building a system, not just saying things and then hoping that some fairies will bring their pixie dust and make the thing happen. You have to actually work hard on implementation. And that's how I'm running the party. Building a team, having a plan. I know it may sound boring. We try and have some fun as well. We're serious in the sense that we are determined. It's not just spreadsheets. It is that we have got to get it right this time because I think the country only has one chance. And I think people are beginning to see that we are determined to turn this around.
You told the Mail on Sunday this week in regards to some reports that those that are defected to reform have started trying to see if they can come back. You branded them drama queens and you said there's no chance of that happening. But as I alluded to earlier, the polls are not necessarily shifting for you on a national scale. Do you think there's a risk that insulting those Tories, national level politician Tories that jumped ship, you might accidentally end up telling the voters who jumped ship that they're also not welcome to come back? I mean, what's your message there?
No, I don't think so. And in fact, I think one of the things about explaining the drama queens is that I am talking about some very specific people.
Who?
You know who I'm talking about. You see them online saying this is reason number 555 of why I left the Conservative Party to their dwindling Twitter followers. There are some people, and all of you will have people who do this in your various organizations, companies, at school, people who they're always complaining. It's always someone else's fault, and it's never them. Everybody has someone like that. And when they leave, everyone thinks, thank God they're gone. Thank God they're gone. And the idea that we need to take these people back in order to survive is for the birds. Have you not noticed how much better everything seems after they've left? Why would we take them back?
Talking of insults, I remember vividly last Monday you compared Ed Miliband to a Nigerian military dictator. The week before you obviously accused Bridget Phillipson of having acted like a Gestapo officer. I mean, I thought what happened at PMQs last week was some sort of heat-induced psychosis, the fallout from that. But do you think there's a place for these headline-grabbing insults, or does it actually end up in the long term sort of lowering the quality of our democratic debate?
I think people need to go and look at some history and see how spicy the debates in Parliament used to be before we had television. What's happening is that quite a lot of people, especially the people on the left, have gone very soft, and they don't like criticism, and so whenever you criticize them, they make out as if they're being hurt. Hurty words. Politics is a contact sport. The reason why we have politics is so that no one else has to worry about these things. Parliament is there for us to sort out the disagreements, and sometimes it will get heated. But you look at Bridget Phillipson, for example. There are 40,000 children who have been displaced because of her policies. She claimed that she was taxing schools so that she could get more teachers. 6,000 fewer teachers. 6,000 more teachers, she promised. We now have 2,000 fewer teachers. This is failure. This is incompetence. And she doesn't want to talk about the lives that she's ruined and the jobs that she's lost. Heritage schools that have been there for a long time. Academies, and it's not just private schools, academies as well that have been ruined. It's all about her. It's not about them, it's all about her. She grew up on a council estate. She's a disgrace to people who grew up on a council estate. That is not an excuse for failure. Brilliant people grew up on council estates and have done a lot better than her. She's just not good at the job, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise so that she doesn't feel bad about it. She should feel bad.
If I can just sneak a question as we come to the end of this section on something that I've done a lot of reporting about recently, which is Restore Britain. Rupert Lowe's becoming your sort of secret weapon, really, isn't he? He's very helpful to you.
Rupert Lowe was created by Nigel Farage, and this is when people talk about uniting the right, I say I want to unite the country. How do you unite with somebody like Nigel Farage who falls out with everybody that he works with, every single political outfit? How do you work with someone like that? Why would I suddenly think that, oh, I'm going to ignore all those hundreds of people he's fallen out with, it's going to be different this time? Why would I think that? And he's not my secret weapon, he's his own person, but he is a problem that Farage created himself, like this scandal that he's having right now. These are all self-inflicted issues. That Nigel Farage creates his own problems, and he has to deal with that. I think if he'd treated Rupert Lowe better with some respect, I found the whole thing quite bizarre. For people who claim to be anti-woke, the cancel culture of reporting one of your MPs to the police for stuff that turned out to be unfounded, I thought was pretty wrong.
But the Tories did give him one of your own sort of allocated seats on the Public Accounts Committee. They didn't stand against you in the Scottish by-election. There were reports of talks after he was kicked out about him joining the Tories. You know, Reform allied people are sort of, they'd be right to be sceptical that there isn't some sort of supply and demand deal going on here.
Well, that's a conspiracy theory, and they're doing it because they're worried. They didn't care when Reform split the vote and let hundreds more Labour MPs in than there should have been. Without Reform, we would probably have had a hung parliament or a very small Labour majority. They would not have been able to do as much of the damage as they had done. Reform didn't care about that. So why should I worry that Restore is causing them problems? Who remembers when those by-elections were happening, people saying, you should stand down in Makerfield, and then Reform will stand down in Aberdeen South for you. I said, I don't stand down for anybody. We will all compete, and what happened? It didn't matter. You add up the supposed right-wing votes, and I don't think you can trade votes like this. It wasn't enough to win. But in Aberdeen South, Reform stood, and it didn't make any difference. We still won because people knew what they wanted. It wouldn't have mattered if Restore stood. And this stuff about, oh, you put someone on a committee, you know, there are not that many people who want to be on these committees. Let's stop pretending the committee is some wonderful, amazing sort of thing. The fact is, Rupert Lowe turns up to work every day. I see him in Parliament every day. Nigel Farage doesn't turn up to work. I put Rosie Duffield on a committee. She is on the Women Inequalities Committee. She is on the left, but she agrees with me on certain things. I know she'll do a good job there. The bottom line is that because of Reform, we have now the smallest opposition ever. We've never had an opposition this small. I don't have enough MPs, so if there's someone who I think will do the same sort of job that a Conservative would do on the committee with Rosie, I wouldn't put Rosie on public accounts, but I would put her on Women Inequalities because she's tough on that. And if Rupert Lowe said, I'd like to do this, then that's fine. That doesn't mean we've got an election pact. What it shows is that I am able to work with other people on a case-by-case basis when there is something to work with them on. I can do that. Maybe Reform should do that instead of moaning and whining about what I'm doing.
I'm going to steal my last question from Michael Cockrell, actually, who had a tradition of asking opposition leaders the question, do you have any doubts about your ability to fulfil the role of Prime Minister? So do you?
So I think I would do a good job. In fact, I think I would do better than a good job. But I'm never satisfied with where I am. I always want to be better. And there is, when I first became leader of the opposition, I told people, you know, it's going to get better. This is not P. Kemi. And in order to be Prime Minister, you should be somebody who continues to grow and grow in the role. And that is something that I am, that's who I am. You know, I'm like the bald, basically. Those of you who are Star Trek fans, I'm always adding to information, always getting better. But I'm not complacent. I've seen the job of Prime Minister up close. It is like being a cabinet secretary times 20. It is not just a slight step up from being Chancellor. I am probably one of the most qualified people to be going in, not just having been leader of the opposition, but having been a Secretary of State in 2 departments. I've been a Minister in Education, in local government, in the Treasury as well, along with equalities. There are very few people who go into the job with that kind of experience, and I'm not trying to do it all by myself. I ask for help when I need it. You know, I go to former leaders. I ask IDS, what do you think of this? Even William Hague. I ask David Cameron, what do you think of that? John Major once in a while, because I know that the sum total of everybody's knowledge is going to be a lot more than just what I have. But do I have enough? Yes, I do, and it's going to be getting even more.
Thank you very much. Okay, right, we'll move on to questions then. So number 1 is going to be from Oliver Dean, who I believe is in the room.
Thank you very much. Oliver Dean from Conservative Home. Kemi, you've talked a lot in recent weeks about the strength of the team around you, about the strength of your shadow cabinet. But I've been speaking to MPs in recent weeks, and a lot of them are eager for some type of shadow cabinet reshuffle. So can I ask, are you categorically ruling out a shadow cabinet reshuffle if Andy Burnham gets in and shakes things up?
So I'm not planning a reshuffle at the moment. I have a good team. Reshuffles, when I was in government, I found really painful. I was always promoted as it happened, but it's very destabilizing because just when you get the hang of a job, you then change, you have to start from scratch. And actually showing people that we have got some stability is very important. We're not like the other parties where they either don't have spokesmen or they're chopping and changing all the time. But I want people to understand that everyone who is in my shadow cabinet is in there for a reason. They're not all there because they can, do a great job on GB News or the morning round or whatever. There are people who are there sometimes because they're brilliant at policy. Others are there because they're brilliant at parliamentary procedure. Some are good campaigners. Some are good with people. You need a team of lots of different types of skills. You can't just have a team of people who are good on TV. The whole thing will fall apart. And I want to build that sort of team. I know that lots of people like reshuffles, but they like them because it's news for a week. Oh, look at this thing. And then they get bored afterwards. I can't have a reshuffle every week. I have no intention of doing that. If I do change people, it will be for a good reason that everyone understands, not just because it's going to be fun to write about.
But if I can just add a quick one onto that, there are, and I won't name names and make things awkward, but there are a couple of people very prominent in the shadow cabinet whose fingerprints are particularly on the last government's failures around immigration. Do you not think them still being so prominent in the party undermines the credibility of what you're offering on immigration?
Well, given that two of them have now defected to Reform, former Home Secretary and her Immigration Minister, I don't think that criticism applies as much as it could have been once upon a time. But look, mistakes were made on immigration, and some people made more mistakes than others, but collective responsibility meant that 250 Conservative MPs got punished for that, and those who are behind understand what went wrong. That's why I have changed the immigration policy. You look at what happened. We just took our eyes off the ball. That is my understanding. I wasn't in the Home Office. The numbers didn't come out until a year later, and as soon as we discovered that, we started fixing it. James Cleverly was the Home Secretary. We put in lots of tough things, and the numbers have started coming down under Labour, not because of Labour, but because of changes that we made. We are very sorry. We've acknowledged that mistakes have been made, and we have the toughest immigration policy that's out there now. We're leaving the ECHR, and there is a full plan to support that, and anybody who does not sign up to that plan cannot be a Conservative MP. At the end of the day, it's what the leader is doing that will shape what everyone else is doing. And I know that all of the people in the shadow cabinet have got behind me and my leadership. They're not disagreeing with the offer, and that's what I want people to know. We are absolutely serious and determined to sort this problem. We have to stop the boats. We have to deport all foreign criminals, people who are in this country who have no business being here, whatever the color of their skin or whatever their religion, they need to be taken out. So, just in case someone tries to twist that, I mean taken out of the country, not machine gunned or something else like that, because I know that there'll be Bridget Phillipson or somebody complaining very soon that I've said something mean.
Can we go next to Stephen George Hilly? I think he's in the room.
As an engineer, you're very well placed to understand the benefits of technology and artificial intelligence. Can you tell us, how would the next Conservative government approach AI in terms of job creation?
Okay. So I see AI for this generation as what the internet was for the early to mid-90s. And can you imagine if a government had said, well, we're going to create a good internet for the country and do this, that, or the other? It wouldn't really have worked. What we want is to be ahead of the pack. We want to be specialists. We want to be great at developing AI. That means being able to keep the AI companies here. The cat's out of the bag. We can't control it. Right now, we are number 3 behind the US and China. How do we compete? It is that 5-point economic plan I was talking about. Number 1, lower energy costs. We're not going to get any data centers here if our industrial energy costs are 4 times what they are in the US. So let's stop pretending. We need to sort out industrial capacity. We need to make sure that we don't overregulate to the point where the companies don't even come here in the first place. We need to sort out our capital markets and listings. We have lots of startups in the UK coming out of some of our great universities, and the minute they start to get interesting, they leave and go to the US because the capital markets aren't deep enough here. We need to sort out listings. We need to sort out access to capital. And I think that if we do what governments should do, which is create the conditions for growth, we'll be able to sort this out. That 5-point plan is lowering energy costs, it's cutting red tape, it's cutting taxes, it's getting people working, flexible labor markets, getting people off welfare, and championing and backing business. You do those things and you will see that AI will actually start to take care of itself. What I want to see is us developing our own sovereign capability. I do worry when I see decisions that the US is making about restricting Fable, that latest iteration of Claude. I don't want to be in a situation where any country can switch off the AI capability that this country has. We need our own sovereign capability. We need to make sure that our defense industry is using AI because everybody else will be. We need to integrate it across the board with the ways that we defend and protect our country. That's one of the ways that government can actually spend a lot of its capacity in developing sovereign capability and on defense, rather than in picking winners, which I don't want us to be doing.
I'm going to read out the next question from Sam Waddle, who I think...
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm going to add stoppage time at this rate. How will the Conservatives bring back younger voters who feel locked out of housing and opportunity while you still defend policies such as the triple lock?
Okay. So in order to deal with housing, we've got to tackle three things that have made housing out of reach for young people. The first one is supply. We have not been building enough. We have so much NIMBYism, and hands up, the Conservative Party is only second to the Liberal Democrats in the last Parliament for saying no to things. Now we are third behind Labour and the Liberal Democrats in saying no to things being built, because it's very easy for local councillors to say no. It helps them win elections, but it's been very bad for supply. There are loads of regulations, just going back to the cutting red tape, there are loads of regulations that we've got to look at. They've made house building so expensive, adding £50,000–60,000 to the cost of the house, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. So dealing with supply, we need to build more. The second thing is dealing with demand. Immigration is related to the problem with housing. If you allow millions of people to come in, but you don't plan for where they're going to live, you are going to create a squeeze on housing. And if the supply does not change and the demand increases, then you will see an increase in the price. That is basic economics. And that is why the price of housing, one of the reasons why the price of housing has gone up. And then the third thing is that we need to sort out the economy. We have had an asset bubble in residential property in loads of parts of the country because people are not getting returns on equities and investments, so they're putting all their money into housing. That's also inflating the cost of housing. We need to deal with that by sorting out the wider economy, getting business growing again, making sure that profit is not a dirty word, getting returns. And when we do that, we will be able to bring down the cost of housing and give lots of young people the hope that they need. That's how we sort it out. If changing the triple lock does not build more houses, it's just another kind of redistribution. It doesn't create growth. We need growth. Building houses will generate growth. Abolishing stamp duty will mean that people will move more. That's why we've got that tax cut to abolish stamp duty, and we have found the money to pay for it. That will help young people be able to put their foot on the housing ladder, and those who already have a home able to grow their families with bigger homes. That is a joined-up policy from top to bottom, and that's what the Conservatives are offering.
But it strikes me that you've been very forthright in your strategy, which is sort of telling uncomfortable truths and being a leader and having that be the reason people vote for you. It strikes me that your adherence to the triple lock sort of stands out as slightly sort of old Tory leadership style. I mean, is it something that you're genuinely having proper policy discussions about possibly changing?
We have, but remember, I always start from first principles. Moving around the money from the triple lock is dealing with a symptom rather than a cause. If we were growing at 2–3%, nobody would even be talking about the triple lock. There's a reason why the triple lock has only become a conversation starter. It wasn't something we were talking about 10 years ago. Growth is the problem. Getting people off welfare and into work will create growth. You're not paying their benefits and they're adding into the tax take. That's a double whammy. That will create more growth. When Conservatives first came into office in 2010, so 7 years before I became an MP, there was a lot of pensioner poverty. This is 11, 12,000 pounds we're talking about. This is not, you know, lots of people living the high life. We have to deal with growth. Our 5-point economic plan is a growth policy. Let's get the growth and deal with that first. If you start with the triple lock, you will have the same problem next year and the year after of just moving bits of money around. Moving bits of money in a smaller and smaller tax take, a smaller and smaller pot, is not an answer to the problems that the country has. That's why we've chosen this strategy of dealing with the welfare and benefits problem first.
And I'll just go last one from Matthew Jeffrey, please. Oh, here.
Hi, Kemi.
Yep.
Inevitably, you get comparisons with Margaret Thatcher. I'm sure Andy Burnham, as Labour's first female Prime Minister, will see comparisons as well. But what qualities do you admire on Margaret Thatcher?
And I think actually every Conservative leader gets compared to Margaret Thatcher. I remember William Hague being compared to Margaret Thatcher. I think the only person who wasn't compared to her in some respect was John Major, and he was supposed to be the person that she chose. So it is very flattering. 50 years ago, she was doing the job I'm doing now, leader of the opposition, and people had written her off. In her first 2 years, they thought she was a placeholder, they laughed at it. There was another party leader who people said, he looks like what a Tory leader should be. He was taking her donors. Lots of people don't remember this. He was the person that they were all talking about. It was Jeremy Thorpe. Jeremy Thorpe was the leader of the Lib Dems, and people, that's what a Tory leader should look like, but it didn't last. And she stuck at it. She built a strong team of people around her. She relied on advice. She didn't get fazed by the relentless attacks. She knew that that's what politics was about. She had been a Secretary of State before. She'd been in a previous government that had failed, and she was able to turn things around by saying, we got it wrong before, here is the right way to do things. And I am trying to follow that template. It's not about trashing previous leaders, which is one of the things that people encourage me to do. I should kick this person out, kick that person out. It's not about that. It's about saying, here's what we got wrong. We have learned this lesson. We are going to fix it. We've got a plan. We've got some common sense around the table, and we can bring people together. And I don't think we should underestimate just how important it is to bring people in our country together. Just to the point I made right at the beginning, this era of multi-party politics is feeding off social media, echo chambers. If it's not class war, it's identity politics, and everybody's retreating into tribal groups. I hate that. I want to bring the country together. I think that that's something that she would have liked to see, and it means being very tough, not being put off when people say mean things or write mean things about you. And I think that that is the template to follow. She was somebody who was able to take tough decisions. She wasn't trying to be popular. She was trying to do the right thing, and that's what I'm trying to do now, the common sense right thing.
Well, and on the note of comparing Nigel Farage to Jeremy Thorpe, we shall leave this section there. Thank you so much for joining us, Kemi. We're about to move on to a panel discussion with some excellent guests, but for now, thank you very much, Kemi.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Politics UK.
Susan, I think I want to come to you first because Kemi is so absolutely against any form of cooperating with Reform or the other right-wing parties. But I think your politics seem quite sympathetic to that sort of that wing of British politics. So are you willing to work with the other parties on the Assembly, or are you also as entrenched as Kemi is?
On the Assembly. Oh.
Oh, hello. That's all right.
On the Assembly, you have to work with other parties because there's far more Labour than the rest of us, and if you want to get things done and if you want to scrutinise properly, you have to work with other people. I can understand her position. We cannot just have people going out to other parties coming back again, and that's why she makes those comments. Also, if you think about it, we are far more united now than we were. And if you think about the football, and I'm afraid that's why I look like I do and she looked as fresh as she did, I've been up all night watching the football. And many people complained about the choice of players that Tuchel chose, but he said all along he wanted to choose people that would make a proper team. And last night, I have to say, it was one of the best football matches I have ever seen. And they played as a team. And as Conservatives, that's what we've got to start doing now, playing as a team.
Yeah. Emily, I mean, where do you stand on Tories versus Reform at the moment? Where's your heart, and I suppose where's your head? Because there's quite a lot of people on the right that are split between those two things.
No, you're completely right, and I'm going to be honest, I think like many Conservative members, I have had the thought of, do I go to Reform? And my kind of sticking point was, I always said if someone like Robert Jenrick goes to Reform, at that point I would consider it myself. But actually, this is the best I've ever felt being a Conservative member since when Boris won the election. And I speak to a lot of the people that have gone to Reform, and I'm hearing a lot of buyer's remorse. It's not what they imagined, and I think fair play to Kemi, she said she's not accepting defectors back, and I think that's really admirable. So yeah, I'm feeling really good as a Conservative member, possibly the best I've felt in a long, long time.
I'll repeat the question to both of you that I asked Kemi, because there does seem to be a disconnect, I'm afraid, between the optimism within the Conservative Party and the state of British politics. I mean, when Kemi took over, the party was at 25%. It's now about 20 to 17%, depending on the polls, and doesn't seem to be budging. Burnham seems to be taking votes at Reform's expense, but the Tories don't seem to be gaining. So why is everybody so optimistic when it still seems like the Tories would be way off, or even worse at the next election than they were the last?
Because you have to believe you can win. Something makes us go out week in, week out. Is it not working?
Go on.
Thank you. Oh, that's better. You have to believe you're going to win. If not, you're not going to go out on a hot Saturday delivering leaflets, knocking on doors. You have to believe you can win. And when you've got a leader as good as Kemi, you think, yep, I can buy into that and we can make things better. And we blooming well will, and we will come back up again. I genuinely believe that. And if you look at London, it's a very mixed picture, and it's nowhere near as bad as it has been, quite frankly. If you're looking at it, we've gained councils. Thank goodness we've got Westminster back again, Wandsworth. We're actually now running Enfield. In Harrow, where I am, we got 11 new councillors. We're doing really well. And when I look at you, I just know that we're going to get more and more in Ealing. So I think give Kemi another year. I think we're going to be looking at a completely different picture. And the reason we're positive is that we are working as a team. Look at our wonderful footballers. They're working as a team and they all look happy.
I think you're just showing off that you two watched the match last night. And
I'm trying to keep
I was
myself
so
awake.
professional that I decided to actually go to bed. Emily, I asked Kemi earlier about the credibility gap that still remains. I think that's the issue that for the party at the moment is you look at the polls. I mean, if you exclude Andy Burnham, who's obviously completely untested at the moment, is already starting a bit of a honeymoon. Kemi is the most popular party leader, but way ahead of the popularity of the party as a whole. So is it possible for her to drag the party up, or is it dragging her down?
I think it's a good question, and first of all, I'd just also like to point out that I do think Reform have peaked too early. I think the Conservatives have been quite clever at playing their cards quite close to their chest and not revealing all of her policy areas. And one thing about Kemi is she's very detailed, she's very good when it comes to policy. She doesn't want to do these gimmicks. She does actually want to think out policies and put out policies that will actually work and make a real difference. So whilst we might not be seeing the big wins now, I think that will come. She is popular as a leader. Obviously, a lot of Conservative voters still very let down by the party over the last 14 years, but I think, you know, as she becomes, her popularity continues, and as kind of Nigel Farage gets embroiled in more of these scandals, and I think Reform potentially lose a bit of credibility, I really do think there is a gap. And I think we had a bit of an identity crisis. I think we went too far away from our kind of Conservative values, our small C Conservative values. But I think Kemi is a leader to kind of bridge that gap again. Yeah, and I'm just feeling really optimistic, to be honest. And if you'd asked me a few years ago, it would have felt awful. But I think, you know, the local election results weren't amazing, but they were a lot better than I was expecting, to be honest. And we had a really good result in Scotland in the by-election. So I think, as a Conservative, whilst we're not where we want to be yet, I feel quite optimistic overall.
There is a question, obviously, that the party did do well in London, and Reform did underperform. But isn't there the risk, actually, that the Conservative Party is becoming a small regional party for fiscally conservative metropolitan people that no longer has a proper base out there in the rest of the country?
No, I think if you actually, everybody wanted to buy into Nigel Farage's, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. We assume that only a small amount of the population understand finance. They don't. A much bigger section of the population understand finance and understand when people promise the earth, like Burnham's doing now, like Starmer did before, there is no money tree. You know, they're going to have to find money from somewhere. And I do think if we concentrate on what we're offering financially, you know, our strong policies that are all being costed out, we're not promising the earth, because people know that, you know, all these promises are not fulfilled. If you look at Nigel Farage at the moment with his very many issues around his funding, if you look at Zach Polanski, and many of you know I work with him, he's barking mad. And more people will realise he doesn't have a clue. And we're really pulling him apart on the Assembly at the moment, because anybody that follows that, I mean, really.
Do you think we've passed sort of peak populism then? Do you think we're seeing the end of the peak? Reform's peaked. The Green Party certainly seemed to have peaked. Both of the leaders' popularities are on the slide, and Kemi's on the up. Do you think there's a chance that in the next couple of years, all of the chaos that's happened since the general election will subside, and we will go back to a 2.5-party political system? Or are Reform here to stay?
I can see it happening. I know people in Reform, and they are not as happy as you would think. Well, these parties come and they assume they can take over the world. The reality is Labour and Conservative, and the Lib Dems more so now than they were, we've got structures, we've got chairmen, we've got foot soldiers, we've got bases all over the place. And if you're going to do old-fashioned knocking on doors, saying hello to people, which the public do like. I mean, in my area, we've got Bob Blackman. He's now got the safest seat. Why? Because he is out, unless Spurs are playing, he is out every single weekend knocking on doors. You know, nobody can knock Bob Blackman, and that is how you get the electorate. So we're out all the time, but Bob has got very many helpers. One gentleman in the front there, I've been out with him many times. And this is what Reform haven't got. They do have a load of prima donnas in their ranks, and I know because I used to work with some of them. And as an example, last week, because Keith Prince who's now the leader of Havering, because he didn't like what was said, he and the other Reform Assembly members just walked out. Well, you can't just walk out. You are representing people in your constituency, and they don't understand this, you know, the burden of being there, elected. You've got to do your job properly, and I'm afraid they don't always believe this.
And I'll just finish to return to the main theme of the evening. Really is how do the Conservatives carve out a distinct identity that excites the public, that's different enough to Reform, when actually, I mean, yes, I know it's easy to say that they're all, you know, their financial plans are uncosted, but you know, there are significant areas of policy overlap on immigration, on net zero, on the ECHR, on anti-woke, on Whitehall reform. I mean, is it sensible to make enemies of them when you're very likely going to have to be in a coalition after the next election?
Look, I'm very for kind of uniting the right if we need to, but the general election is a long way away, and look, I'm very open to working with other parties if it comes to it, but I think what the Conservatives are doing right now is really exciting, and I'm very much of the opinion that Gen Z is naturally quite small c Conservative, and one of the big issues that Reform continue to have is the fact that they're trying to appeal to traditional Labour voters and the Conservative voter, which actually results in a lot of very socialist policy when it comes to economics. And I think where Kemi is different is that she is not a socialist. And I just don't think socialism is very attractive to Gen Z. So again, very hopeful, very optimistic.
Well, that brings us to an end of the formal part of this evening's event. My thanks again to Kemi Badenoch for joining us tonight and answering my questions, and to our panel for the fascinating discussion then. Thank you as ever for attending in person and for the questions. You can continue the conversation by following and commenting on X, LinkedIn, Instagram and TikTok at Politics UK. And the reception, I'm pleased to say, will now continue for another hour and a half, with the bar closing at 8:30. So please do stay. We'll have our own hydration break now for the rest of the evening and enjoy the evening. Thank you very much.